Mic check. All right, good. We're good.
Um, good, good evening. We call this meeting to order on October 13th, 2025. I'm sorry that we're a little bit late. We had some technical issues. We will now take our roll call.
Ms. Barnes,
Present.
Mr. George,
Here.
Ms. Green,
Here.
Mrs. Talley,
Here.
Mr. Twist.
Here.
Great, thank you. We'll do our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
There are not.
Move for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Take a roll call.
Mr. George,
Yes.
Mrs. Talley,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Twist.
Yes.
Next, we'll have our presentations with Mr. Witchlatch, Director of Teaching and Learning Data Assessment. Very eager to hear what you have to say.
Evening, board. I'm going to briefly go through our state report card from the district lens. There are so once again, we were 4-star overall. Achievement is a 4, progress 4, gap, graduation. I'll go through all these here in just a second. The next slide, if I do this right, this kind of shows our whole breakdown. Every one of our buildings feeds into our district. And I just put the last 2 years on there. You can see the gains as a district was within the achievement area and also in gap closing. And as I jump around here a little bit, at the bottom says, how does our CW Promise Performance Index goal of 0.5 impact our report card? Our performance index is 100% in the achievement outcome. It is also a huge part of gap closing. And I will say, if you have large gains in your PI, your progress is also going to have a positive outcome as well. But that is how we go all the way across in our outcomes there. Early literacy is the 3rd grade reading guarantee. And you're probably scratching your head already of saying, how can Winchester Trail and Indian Trail both be a 2-star, but the district's a 3-star? So the early literacy outcome is based on grades K through 3. Think of our building setup, a K2 building and a 3-5 building. So our district takes into account if we were a K3 elementary school only. So as a K3 elementary school only, we met the expectations of the state. But we can also see we have opportunities at Indian Trail and Winchester Trail to improve on that as well. So I wish there was a way around that, because Indian Trail and Winchester Trail both do not get credit for students who were on a ramp in 2nd grade and who moved off in 3rd grade. That credit gets lost for either building, and that credit only goes to the district. So that helped make us a 3-star there. At Indian Trail for the early literacy, those are students in 2023, fall of 23, as kindergartners were put on a RIMP and then either moved off or remained on a RIMP in the fall of 24 as first graders. So that's how it's a year-over-year analysis of fall of one year to the fall of the next year. So at Indian Trail, 61% of our students moved off a RIMP in those grade levels. We need 68% to get to a 3-star. So I think 61% is wonderful, but that's just how the state has it set up right now. So biggest thing, my biggest takeaway is there's great things happening. We all want to see our stars be higher, but if we were a K3 campus or a K5 elementary, we would be a 3-star as that building, just like the district is. As you can see also at the building levels, Canal Winchester High School popped to a 4.5 overall this year. Once again, based on achievement and gap closing, where the PI drives a lot of that information. The middle school went to a 4-star, which is was done by their progress, which is your value add, and your gap closing. Winchester Trail remained a 3.5. They fell in progress, which we've already had discussions about that, went to a 2, and gap closing went down a little bit to a 4, and Indian Trail went to a 3.5, and that was due to the 2-star in early literacy. At Indian Trail, that 5-star in gap closing is based off of EL students and chronic absenteeism only. That's what pulls into that, but that's awesome that we get a 5-star in there. Our EL program at the Indian Trail is very important to that outcome. Any questions on that slide?
Yes, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, congratulations. I think, the district is doing really well. I wondered if the numbers going from Winchester Trail in 2024 to Canal Winchester Middle School in 2025 show that we were a 2 at Winchester Trails, but in 2025 at the middle school, we're at what, a 4? Is there any indication that we jumped that high going from 2024, those same students going into 2025?
That would only be one grade level going there.
Yeah.
So, and that, our 2 is in 2025. So to make a comparison there, our Winchester Trail was a 3 in progress in 2024. And so with 5th grade joining, they also lose 8th grade to the high school. So it becomes a different cohort of kids, but as that cohort of kids joined them, it did raise to a 4. I will say, I was having a conversation with Dr. Dyer back there. We were looking at the achievement overall, and it's really unique as students go up through all systems that the PI has the most volatility, basically. It is really wide in the elementary level. And honestly, those are the students that are just learning. They're just now getting their data points in for the state of Ohio, and they could have a wonderful 3rd grade year and start to have some difficulty in 4th and 5th because the content now is not concrete. It gets more abstract and it becomes more complicated. But overall, I would say as our kids, we are in elementary, we're kind of mirroring most of the state, and at the secondary level, starting in middle school and high school, we're exceeding some of the outcomes that we see. And when I compared the central Ohio counties of Union, Pickaway, Fairfield, Franklin, Licking, and Delaware. Mm-hmm. The next slide, I kind of elaborated on this was why we focus on the performance index, because it's the results of all students on the state report card, grades 3 through high school. Like I said before, it is 100% is the achievement indicator, and then the gap analysis for ELA and math and subgroups, and it's 1/3 or 1 of the 3 parts of the gifted indicator. I also pull out the PI for Indian Trail with their math instrument or math resources and their iReady product as well. Just to highlight here, our district PI grew from 86.2 to 89.1. The largest building gain was 4.8, and that was at the middle school last year. High school was right behind them. And then gap closing, this is where our metrics for gifted PI, chronic absenteeism, ODEW, ELA, and math subgroup, all that gets put into gap closing. It's just not one thing. It's multiple things that go across that. So the focus on the PI last year, I appreciate all the work of the building principals, the staff, because kept the eye on our students, how the progress is going, what was working well, what were some opportunities, and the overall focus of writing. And it's not just the tested subjects, it's all subjects in the building, because you've got to set the standard high for our students. The text complexity and any type of activity should be at their grade level. So it's just all across the board, no matter what class they're in, they're being exposed to a rigorous content of the curriculum. This is the gap closing for our gifted. This is the PI outcomes. Unfortunately, we've not hit the PI piece of this indicator. I put basically the last 4 years in there. That's the Canal Winchester PI that's grown every year from 21, 22 to the last school year. And you can see the state has grown as well. So ODEW's target's 97.5, and that's now finally fixed. But the state PI, that is the top 2% of all districts in the state of Ohio. That was their PI. You take 117 divided by 121 and we get 97. That's how that works. So we're gaining on it, but we just haven't gotten there. Do I see anything wrong with that? No, it's just one of those things you want, but you always have to look at everything that's on the report card. I would say this is the strength of our program, because those are new third graders coming in, there's students leaving the metric because they're no longer on state exams at the high school. It's always new bodies coming into that. So it's very nice to see. This is more on the gap closing on the ELA categories. This is just my madness. This is not how the state puts it out there. But you can see our PI for 24-25. That was our outcomes for our kids on our state exams. You can see a 2025 goal and a 2026 goal. Those are established by the state of Ohio. And the way we get credit is if our students exceed that goal. So anything in green is where we've exceeded it over time. Last year we missed 2 areas, and you can see the 2 areas that are highlighted. You can also see that goal starts to increase. I believe it's in 2030-31. All students will be at 100%. So I bring that up because as these targets continue to grow, we're not going to have as much green on them. But one thing I look at is what's our PI doing with our current students? Are we making gains? Are there opportunities there? And then even digging into it more to what grade level, what content area, everything else, what's happening to it. So that's our ELA for the district right there. And then the next ones are math gains. And math is where we had a large increase last year, where our gains really flourished last year on the state report card. Once again, we got all but 1. But if you look at that 1 in 23-24, it was our students with disabilities. As a district, we're at 49.6. We increased to 51.5. So we gained on the outcomes on the performance of that subgroup of students. It's just not to the level that the state has established for us. And you can see in the 2020 or this school year, that target is now up to 56.99. So it keeps growing every year. And like I said, in 2030, 2031, all students' target will be 100%.
I noticed on both of those last
Yep.
2 slides, it seems like we had a fall off from 22-23 to 23-24
Yes.
in the 2 affected groups, so Asian or Pacific Islander students with disabilities. And then it looks like we had a pretty significant gain in 24-25. Any thoughts on why we had that fall off in the previous school year?
I mean,
it almost looks like we got back to
yeah,
we got back to where we were trending.
yes.
That year seems like an outlier. 23-24 seems like an outlier for some reason.
Isn't that when we started going back to full days in COVID?
That was in 21-22.
21.
Yeah, so 23-24, we were having progress, and then it kind of plateaued.
Yeah.
And then we had progress again. I make a comment when I meet with staff that honestly, school looking at data, kind of like the stock market. You're going to have ups and downs. It's going to plateau at times, and it's how we're going to react to it. What's the conversations we're going to have? There's been a real focus on writing at the ELA level. That has helped us, but it's also in my board report, just to jump into that, I've actually been using AI this year to kind of find strengths and opportunities from my wonderful spreadsheets that I create. Laughter, all right. But it helps, and it has brought out like certain grade levels literary text would be an opportunity. But the thing is, you can't lose focus on the one that you've been building upon. It's always just keeping your kids and how they're doing, at the forefront throughout everything. So I wish I had a better explanation with 23-24, but I don't. The nice thing I like about 23-24 is how we rebounded in 24-25, and there's still room for continuing to grow. This slide I threw in because this is gap closing. This has to do with growth, which is value add. I was at a meeting last Friday at Ohio State with a member of ODEW asking specifically about this particular piece, because that line, to get credit for your subgroup, has to go beyond that 2-point level. In value add, in the progress metric, if you go above two, that's a 4 or 5-star rating. So my problem with this is that this is almost like an extra credit, but it's not extra credit. Every one of these counts, but they're asking you to be 4 or 5 stars. And everybody to the left, those are all positive numbers. That means we met the expectations for those students, but we get no credit for them. I just threw that in there. So if you're ever at a meeting, there's Ohio school boards coming up, if you're in a session, I mean, it's not perfect. This is why it's established for all districts, but at one time, the gap closing component we didn't have this bar. It was about improvement. It was about maintaining our kids. This seems to be really setting the bar high. Mathematics, like I said, you can see we had 5 groups make it and several very close. In ELA, we only had 1, but at the same time, every other subgroup had a positive outcome, which means they met their year's worth of growth. So that's just my little soapbox on that one. So went through all this, flew through it really fast, but what are we doing this year? And honestly, we're just going to reflect and refine and reinforce our practices. Reflect on the data. What's the data telling us? Last year, I'll shout out 8th grade science. They had one of their categories that did not look as strong as the other 2. They talked about it, they addressed it, and it became one of the strongest outcomes. And they had one of the biggest turnarounds this year. Because it's just realizing it was taught first, never came back around, and it's just reflecting on what your data is telling you. Refining our curriculum, assessment practices, and interventions to ensure alignment with the Ohio's learning standards. Everything is aligned, but we're all guilty of doing this when you work with your kids or if you're trying to do something at home. If you're reading a technical manual, the words in there are important, but we will change those words so they're easier for us to understand. If we don't use the language or the vocabulary within the Ohio learning standards with our students, they get to the day of the exam and those standards, they're going to have unfamiliar vocabulary that it will shock them. So we have to make sure we are providing them with the alignment of what the standards and the vocabulary that they're using. And reinforcing effective teacher strategies through ongoing collaborative sessions and analysis. Each building has their meeting times. I'm aware of their TBTs, and it's all the way across the board. At the middle school, I know with the related arts, and I know last year you had an expectation to have some sort of writing that was shared out all the way through to help that. And writing was one of the bigger gains in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade last year. So, and not that this is all about the state exam, but we do maintain a holistic focus of our students' learning and well-being. We are looking to improve the performance on the accountability measures, but we're also looking at the skills of the portrait of the graduate. How can we instill, the soft skills in our students and the knowledge of the academic content standards? So as our PI targets, it's a 0.5 point gain. Those are the targets right there for the district this year. Indian Trail's targets are a little different. They don't have a state exam, but I gave the breakdown to Indian Trail. It had all the same subgroups in there. All the subgroups are not green, but Indian Trail becomes unique because we have so many students coming and going at that K2 level that it's not that consistent population. I take all scores from fall to spring. But overall, you can see the growth of their PI was 4 points in ELA and 4 points in mathematics. And they'll build upon that going again this year. So that's, keep building on it. And hopefully we continue to have the success that we had last year. It was really impressive to see the work that was done and the outcome of our kids. Questions, comments?
Thank you. I do have a quick question. I know that we don't have prior data for the college career and work and military readiness metric, but being that we do have a career coordinator here, I'm kind of interested in knowing if we're going to do anything different, if we're going to go with a different framework within that.
It's not a framework, it's basically expanding opportunities. Did I say that correctly, Mrs. Pink? I mean, it is what we've learned this year. We started the teaching pathway, and those students right there, it's a senior only, but those students in that pathway will actually impact that CCWMR. We didn't do it knowing that. We did it for the experience of the kids to give them an opportunity if that's what they were thinking about. And if they're successful through there, they'll get the 12-point credential. Is that correct? 12-point credential pre-apprenticeship. So, I mean, there's a lot of the pre-apprenticeship things that we are, for lack of a better term, stumbling into. We didn't go out set it up to do it really, and we're finding out because honestly, the state keeps changing things, and maybe we were a little ahead of the game because it's benefiting us. Mrs. Thing, there's a lot of credit for that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And I will say, we do have what our percentages were for that three. We would have been a 3-star if that was actual part of the report card last year. We already know what our outcome is for next year, but we spent a lot of time looking at our kids, making sure, because the state does give you the ability to make sure you entered everything correctly. And we found probably 15 kids that we were able to correct, which put us once again solid as a 3-star district and actually gaining closer to the 4-star. We'll see what happens with this graduating class.
Then I have one more question. I know the districts, it looks very heavily at the MAP testing. So for the reading, for the early literacy component, would there be other baselines or guidelines that you guys are going to be looking at to help determine if there are certain students that need more help outside of just using the MAP?
At Indian Trail, they actually use, I just went blank. Well, no, for reading, any kid that was on a RIMP also was screened with Ames Web. So we have that data that we're also tracking to go with MAP. Honestly, MAP sometimes for the young learners, they aren't familiar with a device. They aren't familiar with how to answer it. But the Ames Web actually takes in the sounds and everything else as well that builds upon the classroom instruction. In MAP, when it's given again in December, we'll look at all of our kids again, decide who has flourished and become a sponge and has grown like crazy and who still needs support, and we'll rotate kids in. So it's not a fixed thing that we do. And actually, it's more kids than just the ones on the RIMP have been. There's been teacher input of the student needs to be looked at, and so they get that information as well, or get that additional screener as well. So we're looking at multiple instruments to try to best serve our students.
Okay, good. Because of course, obviously, we want to be sure that we capture all the students that might be struggling.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Wood.
You're welcome.
Next we have is knock your socks off.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm excited to recognize two of our staff members this month. First up is Canal Winchester High School science teacher Emmett Tosco, who was nominated by Tierra Freeland. Tierra says, Emmett shows up every day ready to make biology fun and engaging. His great sense of humor and ability to redirect chaos into focused learning make his classroom a welcoming and productive space for students. So he was unable to be here with us tonight, so I will deliver socks and his certificate to him tomorrow. Next up, we have bus driver Aziza Jenkins, who was nominated by Jody Good. Aziza goes above and beyond every day to ensure her students are safe, supported, and cared for. She takes time to get to know each child on a route and builds positive relationships that make a difference in their day. Her kindness, attentiveness, and professionalism shine through in everything she does. Aziza truly knocks our socks off with her dedication to Canal Winchester schools. Congratulations. I don't know if she is here with us this evening as well. But again, I will drop off her certificate and socks to her and get pictures and get those out. So congratulations to both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have the CWEA. And before you give your report, I just wanted to thank you guys for doing the meet the candidate that you did for us. And I'd also like to say that the person who did the moderating, I think her name was Sammy, she was excellent. And she made it so much fun, even though I felt like we were on the Gong Show. But it was so much fun. So we really appreciate you guys doing that and giving us opportunity to talk about.
I know Tori Biggin was big on organizing that. So good evening. My name is Marina Derringer. I'm a high school social studies teacher at Canal High School. I'm here for CWEA. We're here tonight to share a few events and activities that are happening across our schools. This past Wednesday, both Winchester Trail and Indian Trail hosted Trunk or Treat in partnership with their PTO. Over 1,000 students and families came out for the event where they enjoyed games, food trucks, the music of the Luz Brothers Band, and of course, candy. It was a great night of community involvement. And then the 7th graders over at the middle school just hosted their annual Greek Fest this past Wednesday, October 8th. This festive event allowed 7th grade students to dress up, eat Greek food, perform Greek myths that they wrote, and participate in a modified Greek Olympic event. In preparation for this, students wrote their own Greek myths that were performed during the Greek Fest Day. Their Greek myths included a variety of topics like character, conflict, setting, plot, story devices, etc. And this celebration was a very memorable event for the students. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Any questions? Okay. Next on the agenda is our public comments. We have public voice, and we don't have anybody tonight, do we?
We don't have anyone listed for public voice. Is there anyone wanting to speak with public voice? Okay, thank you.
Executive reports. Can we get our treasurer's executive report, please?
Yeah, I may have public voice after presentation. So this is a presentation, but I want this to be interactive before this is meant to be kind of informative. Before we get into the forecast later, the action items, this is just going to get into the planning. This forecast is substantially different than what we saw in November of 24 and May of 25, and there's some key changes of why, mostly legislative reasons. So we just want to get into it. So the cash balance impacted by state budget, potential tax reform, emergency levy, inflationary pressures. So state budget. State budget is made up of really three key areas: enrollment, local capacity, and base costs. Those three things lead to whether you're on the formula, considered to be on the formula, or you're considered to be on a guarantee. And the guarantee is fiscal year 2020, and I'll show you the reason why for that in a second. but we are now on the guarantee. So everything that happened with enrollment, local capacity, and base costs have driven us into the guarantee. We have always been a formula district up until this biennium budget process. So enrollment, you can see that we were growing all the way up to 2020. COVID hit, and we had a loss of students. We had hybrid, non-hybrid, return to school, all of these different things really impacted our school district in a negative way when it comes to enrollment. Pre-COVID, we were down to about 60 kids attending charter schools. We had really driven that down from about 120 to 60. COVID hits, and the very next year we go back to 150 plus. And we've been pretty much at 150 plus ever since. The number that we don't know for sure is private schools. We know homeschools, we know charter, we know obviously joint vocational schools, but we don't ever really know the private number because those kids don't report to us. So you can see we took a big hit in 2021, the year after COVID, and then we've been declining ever since. And then this year we are starting to make a trend back. A lot of that is to do with full day kindergarten. You can see below, kindergarten is the hardest number to predict. Once we get to first grade, it's easily for us to kind of track trends and nail down first through 12th. So we look at birth rates, and you can see that our birth rates starting in 25 are some of the highest that we've had. 256, 36, 262, and we even have a 289. And that is kids that were born 5 years ago. So that would be kids that were born in 2025 that would be kindergarten ready in 2030. And then this is actual enrollment. So you can see we trend above our birth rates quite a bit. You can see here and then up through here, and then there's a couple years under. But for the most part, we average about 103% of our birth rate. So we're usually 3% above what the birth rates say. So it gives us a pretty good idea of what to forecast. We're forecasting 100% of these just until we get more data. This is only the second year of data for us on full day kindergarten. So you can see the myth was during the biennial budget process was enrollments were drastically declining. Well, we're not drastically declining, but when you have a base year of 2020, and they didn't pick 2020 by chance. We're not the only school district that shows this type of trend. Almost every district in the state of Ohio peaked at 2020, and COVID really hurt a lot of school districts. So you see the decline after that. So 2020 is chosen for a reason when they're looking at the state formula budget.
And to be specific, it hurt public schools.
Hurt public schools, yes. So if you compare us back to 2020, yes, our enrollment is declining, but when you look at the last few years, we're not declining to that level. So enrollment's going all the way back to 2020. Well, assessed values look at a 3-year average. And that is also hurting us because you can look at a 3-year average of these was 470. Well, a 3-year average of these 5 years later, it looks like we're much wealthier from a local capacity standpoint. So this is really driving the formula more than anything else. Because you can look at base costs. This was a big talking point among advocates of trying to get the base costs changed. They've only changed the base cost one time in the era of the formula, and that was in the very first year of the last biennium budget. So we are now 3 years of base cost being unchanged. So what that means to the formula is when you see our enrollment increasing or our assessed valuations increasing and local capacity growing, and they don't change the base cost, the only thing that can happen is local share go up per pupil and state share go down per pupil. To give you an example, if they were not to change the base cost in the next biennium budget, so 26 and 27 is a done deal. It's the biennium budget we're in. If they were to leave this again, the state share would go from $3,600 to $2,200 in 29. per pupil. So that's a $1,400 decline. Flip that to us to where we are picking up the extra burden on the cost. So the factors in the fair funding formula, enrollment was stable, so I consider that a net positive. Local capacity obviously is up. The other piece of that on the valuations is income. Income is almost a mirror of the valuations, property valuations. So I didn't want to duplicate. I mean, property's going up on average 6%, income's going on average 5%. So base costs, no change. That results in a guarantee back to fiscal 2020 level. So what does that mean? So the gray bar was the forecast that we filed in November 24. The black bar is the one that we filed in May of 25. The burgundy bar is what we're faced with currently. So in the gray bar, we just said, hey, they changed the base cost last time in year one of the biennium budget. That's literally all that had was 100% phase in and a base cost change in year one of the biennium budget. So it would have been 2026. That didn't happen. So then when we come back in May of 25, we said, okay, they're not going to change the base cost. That's pretty evident that that's not going to happen. In the history of state funding, they've never decreased schools below what they got the prior year. So we said, okay, 24.5 is our base. So we kept 24.5. Because in 30 years of a formula, they've never taken districts below that mark. Well, not only did they do that, they did 100% phase in. They took you back to that 2020 guarantee. So when you do that, we continuously decline because they're not changing the base costs, which means the local capacity share is going up. The base cost is not changing, and our valuations are skyrocketing. So the only thing that can happen is our local taxpayers have to pick up the effort more. Any questions on the state budget side? So that leads us to tax reform. Tax reform, there's a lot of different things out there. Really, your taxes are made up of three things: tax rates, property values, and whether a district's at the 20 mil floor or not. And then reappraisals are done every 6 years. Updates are done every 3 years. That's pretty much the cycle of property taxes. You can see our tax rates have been on a steady decline. That's due to reduction factors of the values going up. That's due to new construction. We have about new construction of 20% of our values per year. So this isn't all due to inflation. This is due to growth in the district from our new construction. A lot of it is inflation. So you can see our tax rates are down. District or Franklin County wide, all tax rates are down. We peaked out in 2020, and since 2020, Franklin County tax rates have continuously declined. Assessed valuations. This is a repeat of the previous slide. Yep.
I just want to make a quick comment on this for anybody who's listening in or watching this live. So tax rates being down doesn't necessarily mean your property taxes went down.
Correct.
It just means that the share of your property taxes that are coming to the school district is down in relation. So our levies are all fixed. Some levies are fixed amount levies. So we're not getting more money because my house increased in value. I'm not paying more to the school district than I was. My share of what's going to the school district of my total property tax bill is decreasing. So this chart on top, it doesn't, for those of you watching, we're not saying that you're paying less in taxes. Mm-hmm. But what we're saying is what you are paying in taxes, the share of what you're paying that is coming to the school district is decreasing.
Correct. So we hit the 20 mil floor for class 1, residential and agriculture, on 2021. Up to that point, reduction factors were taking place. So basically, Ohio law says when you pass a levy, you cannot collect more on that levy until you're at the 20 mil floor. So class 2 for us, industrial and commercial, is not at the 20 mil floor. So when you saw this huge bump from 667 million to 853 million, our businesses didn't have any additional taxes. It all went to residential because class 1 was at the floor. Class 2 was not at the floor. The only thing that happened for class 2 was these tax rates reduced downward because you could not collect more than what the levy was initially passed for. Does that make sense? And this is the main reason we are talking tax reform. This one jump on the reappraisal in Franklin County, and there was a lot of other counties. It's the biggest count. The reappraisals are broken up by county, but the Franklin County column of schools is by far the most that it has in counties. So it's like 30 or 40 of the 88 counties all happen in 1 year. This right here is the reason we're even discussing tax reform. Because from 2008 to 2017, we had 0% growth. We averaged 0% property tax growth, 0%. And that was Franklin County wide. And then from here to here was less than 4%. So this big reappraisal is the reason we're talking. And guess what? 2025, the current tax year we're in, Fairfield County, isn't a reappraisal year. So people have either heard their values or they're getting ready to hear their values. And that is why legislators are pushing to make some sort of move, because they're trying to beat the tax year before auditors have to close out the bills and send the bills out. So this is the reappraisal cycle. 2025 or 23 was the reappraisal in Franklin. It's due to come back in 2029. We've got to get a handle on property tax values. The mortgage rates are 7%. Once those drop to 3 or 4% in the next coming years, the property values are going to skyrocket again because more people are going to buy homes, and it's going to launch those values. So tax reform is important, but trying to get a handle on that and figuring out what's the right tax reform. I just want to remind people, this was our current levy plan. So we've had new taxes since 2009. We've renewed the emergency levy in 11, 14, 19, and 24. We were going to come back and renew it in 29 for a 10-year stint. 2034, all of our debt is gone by that point. If we needed new taxes, we were going to look at that, but it wasn't a necessity, possibly. But it wouldn't be new taxes because we'd be replacing bonds. So that was our current levy strategy, with basically living off of what we have. House Bill 186, which is currently making its rounds, would pretty much wipe any of those plans away. And I'm not sure exactly what we would do. We would have to really look at it. But this is what House Bill 186 does. You can see we didn't change that much from November to May. But you can see starting in this forecast, it's monumental declines on top of the state budget. So what this does is it looks at districts that are at the 20 mil floor, which I said we got to in 2021. And it's basically, again, going back to fiscal year 2020. And they're saying any increase above inflationary values, they're going to wipe away. So that would mean would be phased in for us, but it would be 2.8 million in the first year and then 3.2 million in year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. To give you perspective on this, out of the 3 largest counties, Franklin, Cuyahoga, and Hamilton, 18.8% of the school districts are seeing a cut in House Bill 186. That's it, 18.8%. We're 3 of 16 districts in Franklin County that are seeing a cut. Us, Groveport, Hamilton, Southwestern joins us in year 2 and year 3. Those 3 districts are the lowest tax rate districts in Franklin County. They're 14, 15, and 16. We rank 10th. So 4 of your least wealthy districts are the ones experiencing 100% of the cuts in Franklin County. 1 of 31 school districts in Cuyahoga County. And that's where tax reform started, was Cuyahoga County with their property values, tax rates. So 1 of 31 and then 6 of 22 in Hamilton County. I don't know where this goes. I know it's making its strides through the House side. But I don't consider this to be tax reform. I consider this to be very unfair when they're not doing things that impact 100% of the school districts, and they're not doing anything to impact the districts with the highest property rates. This is penalizing districts that haven't levied. This is penalizing districts that are poor, because most of your poor districts are at the 20 mil floor. Your districts that are off the floor, your Bexleys, your Upper Arlingtons, your New Albanies, because they're able to levy. The only way you can pull yourself off the floor is levy. So I feel like House Bill 186 is rewarding districts for levying, and it's punishing districts that are poor and that have remained at the 20 mil floor. Now, it's just a perfect whirlwind for us that we hit the 20 mil floor, had the biggest reappraisal in the history of the school district, and this is coming out. I don't have a problem with tax reform, but I do have a problem with retroactively going back to make up a new value. Because in 2020, we had plans for this. We could see this coming. We said, okay, we're going to do X. We're going to build a performing arts center. We're going to negotiate with the teachers union. We're going to do all of these things. And to retroactively go back and say, hey, immediately, we're going to take you back to 2020 levels, which is what this does. This is $1 million high just because it's one tax collection, it's one settlement payment, or otherwise it would be 19.2. I just don't know how that works.
The other piece, Nick, will you go back one
Yeah.
slide? The other piece, just to note for those paying attention, FY26 is now, this year, correct?
Yes.
So again, we are in mid-October, and we don't know what this is going to look like yet. That makes absolutely no sense for us. How do you plan for that?
So I've sent proposals to the Senate and the House. They have gotten back. We are looking to meet with them at some point. The issue is the spikes in property value. How do you fix that? Well, we recommended, why do 6-year reappraisals? That seems archaic. Let's do annual updates. Base those updates on inflation. Base it on GDP. Base it on anything you want, but update the values annually. You've got real estate data that's accessible. You've got all of these things that are accessible to you. Why wait 6 years to give people 30% increases? It doesn't make any sense, because 30% is really only 5%, because that's 6% per year. But it doesn't matter. We're humans. We see our tax bill go from $1,000 to $1,500, and it is an impact. So let's update values annually. Let's count the emergency levy toward the floor. That would pull 254 districts off the floor, and it would stop 254 more districts from having increases when values go up, because reduction factors would kick in. If you did those two things, you're gonna impact 85% of your taxpayers where they don't see much growth annually in their property tax bill. Any questions on the tax side of it before we get into the emergency levy? So the emergency levy, we passed this in 2009. The Senate and the House had this in their budget bill. It passed through. The governor vetoed it in June. The governor said, hey, we're going to put a tax working group together, and we're going to come up with recommendations on what tax reform should look like. In the meantime, the House went ahead and voted to override the governor's veto. They did that in September. The Senate was on recess, and they basically said, we've got the votes, but we're going to wait to come back. So they did come back, and they vetoed it on the day that the working group came out with their recommendations for tax reform. So since then, last week, the House issued a new House bill that they passed that says, hey, we're sorry. I think we jumped the gun. We're going to let schools that have emergency levies have one more renewal on their emergency levies, but we're going to count the emergency levy towards the floor. That's passed the House, going to the Senate. I have no idea what that looks like. So the emergency levy is still up in the air. Right now, it's gone because the overrides happened. The Senate overrode it, the House overrode it. So as it stands right now, the Senate could just sit on it and do nothing.
Let me jump in and ask a question though. It's not gone from us until
29, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so we will not be able to renew it. And we lose the homestead and rollback credits from the state, which is $800,000. So again, it costs our taxpayers more money by not letting us renew this levy. So when we talk about inflationary pressures, and you tie this back to the base cost, here's per pupil expenditure data from the CUP report. The state issues this report. You can see the growth on expenditures from 2019 to 2024, $4,000 increase per pupil from a statewide per expenditure report, but we're not changing base costs. So it doesn't make any sense to me on how we do not change base costs, but they have the data that shows the cost of expenditures have increased drastically. We are still below the state average. We've caught the state average from different things, but we're still below state average on the per pupil expenditure. So I still feel like we're doing the right things of being better than the state average, but nothing's being looked at on the formula side on the base costs.
What all goes into that expenditure?
General fund,
Okay.
yeah,
Just general fund divided by the number of students, basically?
pretty much. There's a
Okay.
little bit more to it, but that's the basics of it.
Okay.
So our message is this. I mean, it's that we've got to make sure people understand that state decisions, not local spending, is making our forecast look the way it looks. When you reduce your revenues, services are going to be reduced. I mean, we are a public entity that provides public educational services. And I just want people to understand we have been fiscally responsible. We've had a game plan. We've tried to make sure tax rates are down. We've tried to make sure no new taxes are issued. But unless we're able to get the policy changes our way, we're going to see a reduction in revenue. So we have to continue to educate the community. We have to continue to engage legislators, let them know what the tax reform, the impacts that this has on us. And as a state, anytime I send something to them, I send them more than just us. I try to send them Franklin County or the state or what it looks like, or I try to send, here's a solution instead of just coming across as complaining, because they already think that we're crybabies, which, we do complain a lot. So I'm trying to come at them with data and solutions and not just complaints. And hopefully we get through to them and things like House Bill 186 doesn't make its way through. Because I can tell you, House Bill 186 crushes a lot of districts. So we've got to have a plan for fiscal adjustments moving forward and potentially prepare for new levy, but hopefully not.
When do you think they're going to vote on House Bill 186?
We have no idea. I know they're the reason they're in such a hurry is tax bill 25 is ending. So all your county auditors are putting the new values together, and they're preparing to send out your bills in January. So they're trying to get all of these things in ahead of time. But at some point, like I said earlier, the auditors are going to push back and say, guys, we're done with tax year 25. We have to move forward and get tax bills out. We can't have any more changes to what a tax bill might look like with credits or values or whatever it might be, because we're going to miss the deadline to send out invoices or bills. So hopefully this stuff settles down in the next few weeks. But then it's not going to stop. We're going to continue to have tax reform discussions. I saw Florida this morning have an article out about giving credits back. So the rhetoric is there to make sure something happens with property taxes. Oh, by the way, we funded with property taxes since 1905, so it's not something new. We've been doing it for quite a while. I feel like we're reacting personally. I feel like we let one reappraisal cycle dictate what we're doing statewide. So, any questions? I'll have the forecast later in action items, but I at least wanted to prepare you for some of the numbers that were going to be coming.
Any questions?
I don't necessarily have a question. I know that politics play a large role in what we're experiencing right now, and I like to be an optimist, and I'm always hopeful. So I just want to put that out there. Something that could potentially change the trajectory of what we're experiencing is if come 2026, we elect a governor that's going to support the fair school funding formula. Would that put us on the right path towards kind of getting out of this bleak um, expectation of what we are looking at for our fiscal position?
The governor will help, but we have super majorities in the Senate and the House. So we just saw that the governor supported us and vetoed many financial and educational issues from the biennium budget. And the Senate and House came back and overrode them. For me, I can't think of a time where the Senate and House came back and overrode governor vetoes. It's very rare, but they have super majority, so they know they have the vote. So really, it comes down to state representatives and senators. I'm not saying Democrats, Republicans, any of that, but when you have a super majority, whether it's Republican or Democrat, there are no guardrails to keep them in check, and they're going to get almost any issue they want through because they have super majority. Until we even out both of the chambers, they're going to continue to go and do the things they want, and they're cocky about it. I mean, you can read articles in the paper. They basically come out and say, we're going to wait until October. We've got the votes. There's just no rush for us.
Which includes fair districts and redrawing the nut lines and all the other things that keep the supermajority.
So you need a balance. And I mean, we'd be looking at the same thing if it was Democrats. It would just be different issues, different topics, all of those different things. But you can't allow super majorities where things like this happen. Even if one of the chambers had more Democrats to offset, and then because you have to have both chambers pass it and get it through. And right now they both have super majorities, and it's really tough to argue against it. I mean, we've got great representatives. Lawson Rowe is a Democrat on the House side, and she's a supporter, but she's in the minority when it comes to her influence in the House. Now, Senator Reynolds is a Republican, and I think she does listen. But at the end of the day, she's got party commitments, and she's got to vote one way or another. And she seems to be voting with the rest of the party, which is disadvantage for us. So, yeah, I mean, maybe the new governor can come in and persuade the main leaders of the Senate and the House, and that's what I thought would happen. I thought when the governor vetoed those lines, I thought maybe he had a sidebar, an arrangement that said, you guys aren't going to come back and override these. I thought he had maybe some influence, but it turned out that he didn't.
So again, it's just very important that the legislators hear from their constituents and that we keep pushing information, valid information out. So I think that's our main leverage as well.
Your voice does matter. They do seem to listen. They respond when you send them proposals or feedback. So they are engaged. I don't think they're completely shut off and blinded. I think they do want to educate themselves. They do want to try to understand impacts of districts. I don't know if they care at the end of the day. I think at the end of the day, they just want to be able to say they cut $1.2 billion and it's not any interest of them if it was all 610 districts or 300 districts. I think the bottom line number is what some of them are concerned about because it looks good in the paper that they saved $1.3 billion, but 50% of your districts didn't take any hit.
Well, we won't call you the Grim Reaper. With that, we'll move on to our next report from the superintendent.
Okay, I'm going to try to bring it back a little bit. Trying. Good evening to our board members and our community members who are watching. I'm excited to share some updates from across the district. Students at Canal Winchester High School and Winchester Trail Elementary recently participated in Ohio Tech Day, a statewide celebration of technology and innovation. The event gave students the opportunity to explore robotics, coding, and other STEM activities that connect classroom learning to real-world careers. Our local business partner, NIFCO America Corp., made the day even more special by sharing information about STEM career pathways and providing Lego kits for every third grade student. We also appreciate the Educational Service Center of Ohio for supplying additional resources, including Ozobots and Makey kits. A special thank you goes to our library media specialist who organized and led this engaging day of exploration and learning. And I think our third grade students who went were buzzing about it for the next week. It was good to see. On Monday, September 29th, our community gathered to celebrate the dedication of the new mini pitch at Canal Winchester High School. This project was made possible through a partnership between Canal Winchester High School alumnus Scott Weibel, class of 1975, Musco Lighting, the U.S. Soccer Foundation, and the MLS Players Association. Scott dedicated the field in memory of Canal Winchester students London and Demetrius Wall-Neal. Their mother, Brittany Jones, and family attended the event, and their brother honored them with a ceremonial first kick. The mini pitch is already a favorite recess activity for our students and will serve as both a tribute and a lasting gift to the community. The Canal Winchester Marching Band has officially qualified for the OMEA State Marching Band Finals following an outstanding performance at the Northwestern Band Fest. Although the band typically competes in Class A, they entered the Class AA division and rose to the challenge in impressive fashion. The band earned second place in both Class AA and overall competition, received the award for Best Music, and achieved straight superior ratings. This qualification is a major accomplishment and a reflection of the hard work, talent, and dedication of our students, directors, and families. Congratulations to the entire program on this well-deserved success. Canal Winchester Middle School has been recognized by the Ohio Middle Level Association with the Central Region Award for Best Practices in College and Career Exploration. Under the leadership of Principal Brian Moore, the school has built a strong career exploration program that connects students with professionals in a variety of fields. Through partnerships with Eastland Fairfield Career Center and the technical schools and Junior Achievement, students participate in workshops and simulations that promote career awareness and financial literacy. Reflection activities following each event help students connect their experiences to future goals. This recognition highlights the outstanding work taking place at Canal Winchester Middle School to prepare students for success beyond middle school. Indian Trail's second grade students in the Primer, Law, Westall, and Moore Pod are participating in an exciting program called Classroom Champions, which connects classrooms with Olympic and Paralympic athlete mentors. Through this partnership, students will learn important life skills such as goal setting, perseverance, leadership, teamwork, and community. The program provides real-world inspiration as students hear directly from their athlete mentor during virtual chats and activities throughout the year. On September 22nd, all certified teachers participated in a district-wide professional development session focused on behavioral leadership led by Scott Irvin, who is also known as the Kid Whisperer. Mr. Irvin provided strategies to help teachers prevent, guide, and respond to student behaviors in ways that build strong relationships and positive classroom environments. His approach emphasizes prevention through structure and connection, gentle guidance in place of demands or threats, and calm, purposeful responses to teach positive behaviors. A group of teachers from Indian Trail Elementary will continue working with Mr. Irvin throughout the school year to explore these strategies in greater depth. That concludes my report. Thank you for continued support of our students, staff, and school.
The only thing to report, I guess, is that wrestling through October 15th, I believe, grades K through 6. So they're still taking applications if somebody's interested in that. The iRest sound bath is ongoing. So if somebody is interested in that, that is still, registrations are still open. And karate is anyone ages 6 to 99. So welcome to join karate with the JRD. So I think that's the only thing we have. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Yes, my report somewhat echoes some of the key legislation that Mr. Roberts discussed with his presentation. Just reiterating, the Ohio Property Tax Work Group released its final report to Governor DeWine on September 30th. And there were key recommendations that could significantly affect public education. I'm not going to go into all those recommendations, but specifically, the work group does support House Bill 186, and it also supported House Bill 154. They also released a recommendation to form a new work group to explore government efficiencies and shared services. And as you heard already, our district continues to advocate strongly against House Bill 186. And when it's combined with the shortfall from the state, from state funding, specifically our district, with the state shortfall, we're looking at a 2.5 million short or cut in our budget. And then, like Mr. Roberts said about the emergency levy, that's going to hurt us as well. And other bills affecting school revenue is also House Bill 129 and House Bill 309. And Nick alluded to that as well. There's a lot out there, and they're just making their way through the chambers. Specifically, House Bill 129 and House Bill 309 have passed the House, and they're now under Senate for consideration. In other news, Governor DeWine announced the Ohio School Bus Safety Grant Program, with applications open now, or actually it's open October 15th through November 14th at 5 p.m. And it's for districts to use the grant money for bus safety repairs and upgrades and enhancements. So are we going to be going for that?
Yes, that's good. Our director of transportation reached out to us to see if we want to apply, and we said yes. We kind of just got a glimpse of what she would want to do, and she was going to do some upgrades to the buses. I forget exactly what it was, but it was going to add some safety items to the buses.
Reflectors
Yeah.
goes out.
Yeah, there was a couple safety. Yeah, there was a couple safety things to all the buses.
Great. Excellent. Next month at the Ohio School Board Association Capitol Conference, I would be voting on legislative platform recommendations during the delegate assembly. And what that does, it helps shape the association's policy priorities that they actually go lobby at the State House. So just to reiterate, please know that our district remains actively engaged in these legislative discussions, and we're committed to keeping our community informed. So if you have any questions, please reach out to the board or Mr. Roberts or Mrs. Hunt. We would be more than happy to share the information, additional insight, and so forth with you. This concludes my report. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. And Student Achievement Liaison.
I don't have anything to report, but I did want to say happy belated birthday to President Barnes. She celebrated her birthday last week.
Well, thank you. I'm 29. And who's going to the OSD? I know I'm going. You're going. You're going. Anyone else going? You're going. Okay. So we've got some good representation this year. Lots of information to be able to bring back. Next, we have our district reports.
If I may, President Barnes. I just wanted to thank Dr. Hippler for the detailed report that she gave the board. And I love the expansion of the data that's reflected there because it's important that we look at the big picture. And what really stood out to me was how within the past 3 years, staffing responsibility and as well as what the district is required to do that's mandated, that has not kept up with the increase in student needs. So this report really showed that that difference, in that it brings it out why at our previous meeting, staff, we administrators were asking for additional staffing and so forth. So it helped to explain that. So I really appreciate that, Dr. Hippler.
Mrs. Talley and I often have the same comments to make, so I'll just echo that. But yes, Dr. Hippler, thank you for that added information. I think it's going to be, I just looked through it yesterday for the first time, and I want to continue diving through it. There's a lot there, but it was great to be able to see that expanded information. So thank you. Also wanted to give a shout out to technology. Because just like last month, I think I gave a shout out to busing and said, we all take it for granted. Well, we take technology for granted as well until something goes wrong, like it did at the start of the meeting tonight. So, and possibly now. So, we appreciate all that that the technology department does for the school district and us. So that's all I have.
Anyone else have anything? Okay. That we'll move on to consent agenda. Can we take a motion for the consent agenda?
So move.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. We'll start first with number 2 is our minutes from the September 8th regular meeting. Number 3, we have donations. We have 2 donations, one from the Michael T. Hummel Farm to Canal Winchester High School football, and one from No Paul's to the middle school music department in the amount of $3,500. So we want to thank both of those for their gracious donations. Number 4, certified personnel. We do have 2 letters of resignations from 2 intervention specialists. And then also we are rescinding extended days for a psychologist that was in error. Moving on to number 5, we have our classified personnel. You're going to see resignations from a couple custodians as well as a special education aide. And then we are recommending approval of several positions: custodian, bus aide, and special ed aides. We also have a transfer of a night custodian to a daytime custodian position. And then we have some substitute classified recommendations. Number 6 is our supplemental personnel and stipends. I'm not going to go through these in great detail. It's actually a lot of cleanup, so you'll see some recensions of contracts, and then we're approving. Some of the same individuals are being approved, but those are both for basketball positions and then also some theater positions as well. And then we have our volunteer positions for spring sports, and a girls' basketball volunteer. That's all I have on the consent agenda.
Can we take a vote? Does anybody have any questions? All right, can we take a vote on the consent agenda?
Twist,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mr. George,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Tally.
Yes.
Action items. A motion to approve the action items.
Second.
I think each one, I believe, right?
Mhm.
We're gonna take a vote.
We have to approve, like for the first one, action items, each individual
Oh, okay.
for a motion.
So that was a motion for the first one. So you get a motion. We're gonna do a motion for the second one too at the same
No.
time. Or we're gonna
No.
go. Okay. Are we gonna go over?
Mhm. Yep. So I did two forecasts. I wanted to show the impact that tax bill or House Bill 186 would have, and the elimination of the emergency levy, which it currently stands. Hopefully.
Criminal is in there
Mhm.
somewhere.
Did you try to use a different web browser?
Mhm. Can. You're about as tech savvy as I am. How are you guys doing tonight? Good? It probably, I'm setting such a great mood tonight. It probably doesn't want me to talk anymore. Oh my goodness.
Says you don't have Wi-Fi down here. Bob is cut over.
That's OneDrive.
Okay. Very different.
Go to apps and then go to your, yeah. Files. Right there, my files to your left.
So you are better in this than I am. Mm-mm. There we go. All right. Well, I'm gonna have to just speak from the. Might not even let me pull it up though. Now, still has to connect. No, I'm trying to just get it through my files. Hard to present a forecast and you can't get the file. There we go. Gotta be smarter than a second grader. Yeah. All right. How do you get this down? There we go. This is one. This is the tax reform version. So here. There we go. Okay, so in both these versions, the expenditures remain unchanged. If something happens with tax reform, all that stuff, obviously we've got to tweak. But to compare apples to apples, this is impacting tax reform, the loss of the emergency levy as it currently stands, cash balance at the end of this year, 29.6, next year, 25.9, and that declines very quickly, 19.9, 11.4, and then negative $2.8 million. And that would continue even more drastic because half of the emergency levy is up here. So 3.6 million would come off of this number in the following year because we're receiving one half of that emergency levy in fiscal 30. So this would drop in the 13 million range for real estate property taxes. So we would be operating on $55 million of revenue. You'd have to go back a ways.
That's assuming we didn't replace the levy.
Assuming we didn't replace
all.
anything.
Okay.
House Bill 186. You can
Got it.
see House Bill 186 really suffocates us.
Yep.
If I pull up just the other version. You can see it's quite a bit of difference when looking at the real estate line. So we go from 22.1, 22.6, 22.9 to down to 19.5, down to 15.5, down into the 13 million range. So not only does 186 just crush us going back retroactively, we would never see growth in that line item ever again. So property values could essentially skyrocket to the moon and not receive another penny of real estate revenue unless we levied new taxes. And oh, by the way, this is the number one driver of the state formula. So not only are we not receiving any additional revenue on the property tax valuations, it's also crushing our state revenue side to the tune of from 19.8 to 17.9. So a loss of $2 million because of the property tax valuation, showing that local capacity is wealthy. but we're not collecting on that wealth. So we're hit two different ways from the same property tax reform, essentially. So tax reform can't happen without adjusting the formula. If you don't adjust the way the formula is done, every district with property tax growth is going to see this, and every district that's at the floor is going to see this. To offset the loss in state revenue, you would have to increase enrollment by almost 10%, if not greater, per year. And that's just to break even. That would just be to break even at 19.8 with no changes to base costs and them using local capacity of your values. So the state funding formula, unless something changes, is broken almost immediately. Correct. And that's just getting, so if you increase enrollment by 10%, that's going to drive up your expenditures. And that's just for you to break even on state revenues. So the revenue side, legislation has to understand, I hope that I can get through to them when we meet with them, that you can't live on 2020 levels. That's what we're expected to do on real estate. That's what we're expected to do on state revenue. And you can't live on no growth. The only growth item we would have left is income tax. So think about what was House Bill 309. That's where they want tax commissioners to control whether a levy is beneficial or not. So if we were to pass a levy, the taxpayers of this school district would pass a levy, the Franklin County tax commissioners could come in and say, yeah, you're sitting with $20 million. We're going to revoke that levy. You don't need it. They don't know anything about the school district, but they're able to come in and do it. So even when you do pass a levy, there is still that side of it to say they still may revoke this and we still may not get it. So you could do all of that work. The community could support you 80% to 20%, and you still not have the ability to levy that money if the county commissioners don't think you should have it. So I say that is we're walking a very fine line that the state could possibly control this line, this line, this line, this line, and this line. So basically 90% of school districts' revenues could be controlled somehow, some way by the state with legislation that's pending. That to me is very scary.
Very intentional.
And very intentional, correct. So you can see this is a big hit, and then this is obviously a huge hit to from the 20, 19.2, 19.2, 19.5, 16.3 versus 22, 22.6, 22.9, and 20 million because we would lose the emergency levy at this point.
Regardless, our cash balance is still taking a significant hit either way.
Yeah, but it's cut in half. I mean,
Yeah,
so
right.
to have 22.4 with the ability to make some changes and to trim out some costs, having 22.4 and only overspending by 5 million is a little bit different than having 11 million and overspending by 8.5 million. The overspending is where you're in trouble. You can do the one-time things, like I have the transfer in here to fulfill the debt for the project. So you can do the one-time things. It's when you start running into 8.5 overspending and 14.2 overspending, that's where you not only can't survive. I mean, you're basically making drastic measures to even balance that budget.
Yep.
I don't even know where to laugh. I haven't looked at it because I'm hoping. I'm with Monica. I'm hoping. I'm optimistic that something like House Bill 186 doesn't make its way through. Don't even want to look at the options yet to know what a levy would even mean, it would have to be substantial, but you would also have to reduce a lot of services, unfortunately. So I put both forecasts on here. One's obviously worst case. I mean, it's kind of where it stands right now. This is probably the one I'm going to file because I do want legislators to see the impact of their decisions on us. I mean, at this point, House Bill 186 is 50-50. The emergency levy has been voted to be removed, so I feel like having it off of here is where we currently stand. In the state budget doesn't have base costs here. I don't have base costs here. I don't have confidence yet in legislation to be able to say, you know what, I think they're going to do base cost changes. They almost have to in the next biennium because the formula is now 100% phased in. So if they don't change base cost, there's no growth for districts to have now because you went from 83% phase in to 100% phase in. So now every district's at 100%. If you don't adjust base cost, every local capacity is going to outpace base costs. So every district's going to be in our situation. So you have 610 districts that are getting closer and closer to a 2020 guarantee. So they're going to have to change base costs or the funding formula doesn't work. But I think that's also intentional. So don't know what our path is moving forward, but I mean, you can see that obviously our revenues are going to be cut and we're going to have to probably come up with some sort of plan. I think that's the end goal or the end message, and can continue to advocate. I mean, if they can't look at this and say that has a traumatic impact, then we're almost saying words for no reason. But I do think they want to see the impact, and this is a real impact, and it's not just us. I mean, this is us. We filed that November forecast last year had us showing a $50 million cash balance. That's a $40 million swing in less than a year based on legislative actions. Nothing to do with expenditures, nothing to do with anything that we did, just the change in state formula. I didn't even mention DPI and how much it changed. And Department of Education just came out with a report basically saying disadvantaged students are severely underfunded, and here's why. So part of the biennium budget, they came and they changed the formula that gives districts less money for disadvantaged students. So their own department is coming out with reports to say it's underfunded, but then they do things in the formula to lower the amount that you're getting. So
I just wanted to say I saw a correlation of that with Mr. Whitlatch's presentation in regard to the state report card for the children with disabilities. That performance index was constantly lower, and then I immediately thought about the funding that's associated with that.
yes. Yeah. So any questions on either of these forecasts? This will be the version that I file. Any comments or recommendations? Okay. That's all I have for the forecast tonight.
So we're voting on the two attachments that you just went through, right?
Voting on the 5-year forecast.
The last document that you had.
The last document. All right, you take a vote.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mrs. Talley?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
And next we take a motion on the insurance rates.
I move to approve the insurance rates.
I'll second.
So I sent out a detailed email. You guys probably saw it on Friday. Medical rates are going up 9.8%. you have any questions on any of the information that was sent on Friday to all staff? I doubt we'll get this pulled up.
That was sent to all staff?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I did have some staff reach out to me about it. I wasn't sure if you had sent that out or not, so I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, all staff.
Is that the 9.8%, is that the staff increase or is that the overall increase?
Overall.
Okay.
Yeah. Now I broke out what theirs was. Was it 39.50 a pay? 36.50
Yeah,
a pay?
I saw that.
Something like that.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Family was $70.
Mhm. Per month per pay.
Ready to take a vote? Go ahead, please.
Mr. George,
Yes.
Mr. Twist,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Tally.
Yes.
Next on the agenda is the contract for private tuition. Reoccurring contract for private tuition.
I move to approve the private tuition contracts.
Second.
These contracts, there's two separate ones. The ones for Groveport Madison, we are actually taking students who are currently with New Story, and we are transitioning them to Groveport. It's still New Story services. It's just Groveport is now housing that New Story unit. So these three students, it's not started yet. It will begin January 1. They're still working on the facility, but I believe that will start January 1. So moving them will allow these students to get with their classmates and with where they're at now, so that when they do transition, they're ready to go. And then the
We'll save a little bit on the tuition piece of it, but we're going to save quite a bit on the transportation piece of it. It's a new story. I think it's in Westerville. Westerville compared to Groveport, so transportation costs will be cheaper.
Yep. And then the other one at St. Vincent Prep Academy, we had a student in a another placement, and that student needs to transition to a new placement.
Take a vote.
Mr. George,
Yes.
Mrs. Tally,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Bliss,
Yes.
Payment in lieu of transportation.
I'll move to, for the payment in lieu of transportation.
Second.
Now this one is your routine item.
Now, does anybody have any questions?
Hmm.
Okay, can we take a vote?
Bliss,
Yes.
Mr. George,
Yes.
Ms. Barnes,
No.
Ms. Green,
Yes.
Mrs. Tally.
Yes.
And the next one we have is on discussion items for the calendar first reading for 26-27 school year.
All right. So thank you. As we do each year, this is a process we actually started last spring to begin looking at the calendars. A team of staff members and teachers and administrators work together to prepare a couple different calendars, looking at all the things that we need to take into account, and then it narrows down and eventually goes to vote. And the calendar that we will hopefully try to bring up, which may not be brought up, is the one that was approved. See if we can get it up, and if not,
Was approved by CWEA.
yes, was approved by CWA. Yep. So, well, it was the one that won the votes, I guess. So a couple different ones. And one of the messages that we put out, it's if you've ever been a part of the calendar committee, you know, everybody wants to start after Memorial or after Labor Day, be done before June, get a couple weeks off at the holiday break, have a fall break, get some days off at Thanksgiving, it's just a lot of wants, but in the end, you have to have so many days of students being in school. So this one here is the one that may or may not pop up. It's very similar to what we have this year for a calendar. So some breaks throughout the year. And it does start about a week after what we started this year, the way the dates fall. Give me a second, and I will try to see if I can't at least give some dates. I apologize.
Back to school in July.
Oh, look at you. Thank you. So we would have our new staff work days August 5th through 7th. Our full staff work days would be the 10th, 11th, and 12th. And then the first day for students would be the 13th of August. And then we would go through, we would get a fall break. There we go. Wonderful. Thank you. I leave that up just in case. Looking in October, you get 16th would be our fall break. And moving in November, the 3 days at Thanksgiving. Let's see here. November 2nd and 3rd would be some days off for conferences and professional development back to back. We get our holiday break for 2 weeks in December. Martin Luther King and President's Day. You do see that you get 2 days off around President's Day. Moving into spring break, the last week of March. First week of April. And last day of school will be May 27th for students and May 28th for teachers. So what we'll do is, if there's any feedback, we do put it out in a meeting. If there's any feedback, then we'll come at the next meeting in November for a vote of approval.
Is there any reason why fall break got reduced to 1 day instead of 2?
Just the number of days and where it fell. So the days had to give somewhere. So that's where it was at.
What's the 15th?
The 15th is I believe, the
Scroll down to the
last
first
day of
Into the quarter.
last day of the quarter.
When's Indigenous Day in October? Is it the 12th?
Yes, yes. It does come down a lot of discussion, and just for purposes like the question that you had asked Ms. Talley about fall break. So when you look at it, a day has to give somewhere. So with spring break, Good Friday is the 26th. And then when you look at February, there's 2 days there. Really, when you look at breaks, I think the staff would agree that getting days off in the springish, when it becomes long days, is a little bit better than breaks coming out in the fall, because you seem to get more when you get to, Thanksgiving, 2-week holiday break, and so forth. So trying to spread those out.
Mm-hmm.
But it really does come down to being just when days fall. Each year it's a different calendar. You got to work around the dates. And we shoot for, I believe, 176 student days. I believe. 177 student days.
All right.
We'll bring that back to you then in November if there's any feedback.
Next we have policy.
If I may, I'll go ahead and
Policy discussion.
I'll have a little some comments, I guess, about this. I believe this is something we've been tossing around, talking about, discussing, and this is concerning anonymous emails that are coming into the district and how to handle them. I came up with this one. This is, I will say, it's very staff oriented and to protect staff. And I know there's been some debate and conversation about that, but I came back to this one. I continue to come back to this one. And so that's the reason that I put this. I wanted to put this one in there for us to have a conversation about and have a first reading.
Was this a new draft from the one we had the last time?
It is, yes.
We're going to disregard things that could be verified. That's what this is saying, unless we're legally required to take a look at it.
Yes.
How many anonymous complaints do we get typically in a year?
I don't know if there's been a typical.
Roughly?
5, 6, or maybe
would-
2.
I
I think we had 2
I
last
had-
year, didn't we?
I had
3?
provided you guys with that information
Yeah.
in a email at some point in time. I don't want to quote it. I believe that last year we were a ballpark of 4 or 5, somewhere in that ballpark. And then prior to that, I could say we probably had 4 or 5 in the 13 years that I've been in the district.
We can't just throw these out and not look at them if there's, except when we're required to look at them by law, especially with that volume. I mean, if we want to set up a committee of the whole of this board member of the board to look at these, I mean, with the volume of, let's say 10 per year, let's say 1 per month. I don't think it's too much for us to go into executive session and look at every anonymous complaint that comes in as a board and say, this is credible and verifiable. We need to take a look at this. Just throwing it out because it's anonymous when it's credible and verifiable, I think puts us in a bad situation as a school board.
What's going to determine if it's credible and
We
verifiable?
do. We do. The board members do. The 5 board members look at every anonymous complaint that comes in and say, there is credible and verifiable information in this. We're going to move forward with an investigation.
Some things can be credible and verifiable that don't necessarily have to do with something illegal.
That's
It could
correct.
just be a policy that we have that is being not being followed. And if it's credible and verifiable that they're not following a policy, then I think as a board, we should be weighing in on whether or not we move forward with it. I would agree with Dave.
And I think it's a low enough volume that I don't think it's unreasonable to say that. I mean, we could even put in the policy that, this will be, an anonymous complaint will be reviewed at the next board member or at the next board meeting. I mean, we're never more than 4 weeks away from a board meeting.
I think the big thing is that if it's not something that's illegal and if it's not something that is against policy, then that's something we wouldn't need to follow up on because
Right.
it's not a policy. They're not doing anything wrong from our perspective of what is required of them. But if it's not following a policy or it's illegal, then, and there's verifiable information that we can verify to check into it, then I think it behooves us to follow that, to go through that one more step.
I
guess-
agree.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I agree with Mr. George and Ms. Barnes. I would just add that the provision in 2B maintain, like we'll maintain that in the policy. I do feel that anonymous communication shall not serve as the basis for any disciplinary or evaluative action unless it's legally mandated. So I agree with that provision.
So if
it's
we
anonymous.
determine that there is credible and verifiable, we do an investigation and determine that there was a violation of policy. Are you saying we don't discipline for a violation of policy that we were able to verify?
It says unless legally mandated.
Right. Policy violation would not be legally mandated.
It depends on
Some of
the
them,
allegation.
will be, right? But there's like 4 categories, whatever those 4 categories of legal requirement would be. But if we have a policy violation that we do an investigation and we determine that, yes, this happened, are you saying that we shouldn't discipline an employee because that came in anonymously?
I am saying that
Okay.
because otherwise, if it's legally mandated, then we would. But if it doesn't fall under that, under the guise of protecting our staff, because again, it's going to be some subjectivity in that, even though the board will be reviewing that. I would think that if it's something to a greater magnitude, that we would have the ability to then communicate with the person who submitted the anonymous complaint so that we can follow up and get additional information. Then therefore is not anonymous. And then we would follow protocol.
So you're saying, but what you're saying though is if we verify that there's a policy violation, we're not going to discipline based on that verified policy violation only because it was an anonymous report.
Yes.
Okay. I don't agree with that, but I understand that.
I don't agree with that either. I think if it's verifiable, whether it's anonymous or not, if they can't get the word out, if they didn't follow a policy, and we can verify that they didn't follow a policy, then there should still be disciplinary. There should still be discipline. But if it's not against a policy, and you know, um, I'll just give a silly example. You know, I saw um, board member Barnes screaming at one of her kids. That's not against the policy. Somebody might
Is that
like it,
verifiable?
and they can verify it, but it's not against the policy. Now, if I punched a kid, even my own kid, that that could be against a policy, and it could be verifiable, even though it might have come in anonymously, and I should be disciplined. That's what I'm saying.
But in that case, now that'd be a CPS call. That would be,
That'd be illegal.
That would
now you're
meet the
talking
legal
legal.
requirement.
But,
Right.
but what
Right.
I'm saying is it came in anonymously, and you
But
have to
it's-
verify it first.
No, not if it's legal.
Right. That's the provision
yeah,
that
required
I'm
by law.
sticking by.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because then it would be to some degree that it would definitely warrant some kind of discipline action.
I guess I come down. It's difficult for me to ask this question. All right, so respectfully, but why are we not protecting staff?
We
To
are
the most
protecting
of
staff. But
to the
we
most of
are.
our abilities.
But we are. That's why we're doing it as a committee of the whole of the board, rather than asking, our administrators to evaluate those. And if it requires an investigation, then I think the board also would then be required. If we're saying this needs to be investigated, we would be the ones that would have to do the investigation. So we're protecting the staff all the way up until the point that we verified that there is a policy violation. And at that point, there's not protection needed because there's a violation of policy.
And furthermore, one staff who who may be the one reporting may want to be protected just as much as the one that they may be reporting on. We don't know the situation. So, that's why you would want to review it, even if it's anonymous, because maybe that person wants to make a complaint or file a complaint about something. And in order to hear that person out, and protect that person, you have to listen to what it is what they're saying, even if we don't know who it is.
And I think we can even go back and look at the anonymous complaints that have come in, in the last year, the ones that I'm aware of in the last year. Of the 8 or 9 that we received in the last year, we only investigated one. So, did others need to be investigated? I don't know. I don't think so, but I think that there's even some disagreement on the board on whether we think it should have been investigated or not. But if we bring that into the board and do it and handle it in executive session, then we can make sure that, number one, staff are taken care of when they should be taken care of and protected. And number two, if there's a violation of policy and we're able to verify that violation of policy, that's also cared for. Because it could be one staff member anonymously reporting another staff member. And so now, which staff member are we caring for on a policy violation? Are we caring for the staff member that reported a policy violation because they reported it anonymously? Or are we taking care of the staff member that actually did violate policy? How do we,
I'm trying to think of a policy that one staff member would do. that
I
could
don't
happen
know
under a
whether
situation of nature.
that would happen or not, but and in the end, as the Board of Education, we're responsible for making sure that policy is upheld. So if we know of a policy violation as a board, we can't ignore that.
But my stance is we want to be sure that we're upholding the integrity of all of our policies as well. We don't want to give so much time and energy if these numbers might increase. We haven't seen it yet, but forward thinking, there could be an uptick in these, and we're spending so much time reviewing these. So that's kind of where I'm coming from in terms of additionally protecting staff.
And I think if that happens, then you look to adjust the policy.
Well, couldn't we just adjust the policy if it gets to be outrageous?
If it gets to be outrageous, then we have to figure out what the solution is at that point. I mean, it could happen, right? But we haven't seen that. I mean, even going back historically, I don't know that we've had a bunch of anonymous complaints.
I'm not even sure if it's necessary to notify a staff person that we got an anonymous communication if we review it and determine that it's not worth going any further. I don't even know that it should be, because it's an executive session, we'd be reviewing them in. And I don't even think
I
we
think
have
we
to.
should. I think we should. I mean, because we're not. It is an executive session, but it's directly. It's relating to one staff member.
Mhm.
I think you still follow up with that staff member and say, "Hey, we received an anonymous complaint. Here's the general nature. We've, as a board, decided that we're not going to take action because it's not verifiable." I think the staff member still needs to understand or still needs to have that knowledge.
Absolutely. Yeah, just reiterating, it's I don't agree with. I do agree with you and that we should take into account. But when it comes to the discipline area, to me that's a little gray if it's anonymous, and then we're invoking some kind of discipline upon a staff member. But again, there's so many variables in there. It would
Yeah.
have to come down to what the allegation is.
Yeah.
And then if it's that severe, it's going to fall into that legally mandated piece. Most likely.
Just a clarification question on the ones that we know were required to harassment, child abuse, those would be ones that we would still handle as we are now, not, it wouldn't wait to come in front of the board. Is that an agreement?
That's
Wanted
my
to make sure.
understanding.
Okay.
Those kind we don't.
I mean, we have legal requirements on handling those situations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There are, and that's
And
kind of
policies.
where I kind of lean that direction too, is
Yeah.
we allow the proper authorities to
Mhm.
investigate
Yeah,
those and do those things.
Right.
Mhm.
But now we're talking protocol.
Yep.
would be the next conversation,
Yep,
I think, after
yep,
this policy is.
Yep.
What will determine if something is verifiable? Will it be a witness? Will it be the person that the anonymous complaint is about? How would you determine? How do we determine what's verifiable?
Well, if I see an anonymous complaint come in and it's got, very specific information, this happened at this location, here are people who witnessed it, then we have enough information to be able to go and actually talk to people who witnessed this supposed event to verify whether that happened. Or maybe it happened, on High Street in Canal, Winchester. I don't know if there are cameras on High Street or not, but, do we use that? I don't know that we could use that as verifiable. So I think it's a case by case basis on whether it's, and that's why I think also that, and we had some discussions on this earlier. I think that's also why the board needs to be the ones that review these. Number one, that way it's the 5-member group that's really charged with the responsibility of making sure the policy is upheld. And number two, it kind of it takes out any, any color of unfairness or potentially if we have administrators, a board of a committee of administrators who would review these, that's I think you're putting those administrators and potentially the staff members in question in a bad situation. So if we handle it as a board, then we can determine. I think it comes down individually to an individual on whether we think it's verifiable. If it is, then we have to do an investigation on it.
And then my follow-up question, say it was like my sister, she worked for the school district and there's an anonymous complaint on her. Would I be excluded from voting?
You would have to be. You would have to recuse
So
yourself.
if you know the person that the anonymous complaint is on. So if you three knew someone and it was just me and you voting, it would come down to our decision?
You'd have to.
I wouldn't go with whether we knew them. I would have to go with whether or not there was a conflict of interest because I know a lot of people in the school
Right.
district,
Yeah.
and that could eliminate anybody.
Right.
So it would have to be somebody that would be a conflict of interest for me. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
you're right.
I'm a second grade teacher, so I don't know, but I'm just saying where I could say I feel like this is a conflict of interest. I'm going to recuse myself.
Well, that would, we would really be affecting Adam. So, it'd have to be whether there was a conflict that would keep you from being able to look at that fairly and impartially.
One thing you mentioned was, if there were cameras on High Street, and then you made the comment, you don't even know if we could do that.
I don't know if we could. Yeah.
We did. That's part of this.
But we didn't. It wasn't public cameras on High Street. It was specific cameras in an establishment.
Right. But we did. So yeah. I don't know that I differentiate that.
I think what he's saying is some are accessible and some are not. We might have had to get some other type of permission to get access
some
to a
take sound,
public
some don't
camera.
take sound.
Mhm.
A High Street camera is probably sitting down at High and Waterloo. If something happened on High Street down by Huntington Bank, you're probably not seeing it. So I think there's a lot that goes into that, and I think that's why we need to discuss these, as a group and determine, hey, does this make sense for us to investigate? Because an investigation will take time as well, and we all have a ton of time, right? So for you, gallivanting around the world.
And I'm not saying that necessarily that we have to investigate. If it's something that we determine is credible and should be investigated, we could, as a board, turn it over to one of our administrative staff people to say, we feel this should be investigated. Can you proceed? But
I
even
wouldn't,
if it's
I wouldn't feel,
anonymous.
I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that.
Really?
Yeah, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. I mean, if we're gonna take on the onus of, or, the responsibility of determining whether these need to be investigated, I think that we should have the responsibility of doing the investigation as well. Which means we'll have to learn the SOP for investigations.
Yeah, because I don't want to be an investigator.
I would too. that would be up to you guys if you would run them once you run that by legal.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
think that they would think that the Board of Education should do investigations on like of certain people. But I don't know that. I think that if the policy's written, then we
Yeah.
probably want to run it by them.
We would regardless. Yep.
Right,
Yep.
100%. And yeah.
So where are we at with this policy?
I think we're still in working group on it.
Okay. So we're going to provide our own revisions or notes and provide them back to Adam, or what are we going to do?
Yeah, I think sure. Adam?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. And Adam you sent this to us, right? I think I remember seeing it in an email somewhere.
He had sent it to me and I had forwarded it to you guys in your weekly board or in the board meeting
Okay.
update.
I got it somewhere. Yeah, I
Yep.
remember seeing it somewhere.
Yeah, obviously we can sit here and what if
Yeah.
it to death. Again, my basis for doing this is the protection of staff. That's the basis, and that's if you're talking about mission, vision, how to execute that. This is at the top right there. This is the vision, and so how do we get there is the question, and what's the best way to get there? So.
All right.
I'll redline this whole thing and send you some updates.
Anything else? Closing.
I would, we might want to have a work session for that. I don't believe that you want to do work on a policy in email. So just thinking through. So we might want to look at a work session to
Okay.
work through it.
Can you get a date for us and get back to us on when we could do a work session like in the next week or two?
Do we have any policies that we're going to need to review in a work session at some point coming up soon?
Actually, I have a stack from Neola there. We could.
No more than 5.
It's a big one, but we could tie that in. I've got them ready to go. There's a couple that we're still waiting out on, but that won't stop us, so we can definitely do that. Make it.
Okay. I move that we adjourn at 9:14 p.m.
Second.
We take a vote, please.
Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yeah.
Ms. Green?
Yes.
Mrs. Talley?
Yes.
Mr. Twist?
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
We got Nick's brain problem.